when I started it 11 years ago. Just me in a closet loving weather. I would have never thought that we would produce a product that would save someone's life.
What goes on behind the scenes when you see this storm coming, you see this storm approaching? What kind of stuff are you guys doing on the back end?
I started the company, I had a love of weather, but I knew nothing about the restoration industry, construction at all.
You say chasing tornadoes. I'm thinking
Yes.
Twister, right? I'm thinking the movie Twister. First of all, was that your favorite movie? And second of all, is that what chasing tornadoes, is that what that is?
Problem that they were trying to solve with buying our product, which was tell me where a hailstorm happened, wasn't really the problem that they had. The problem that they had is they needed to know where hail damage was.
Guess when I became a public adjuster? 2008. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to make so much money. All these hurricanes, I can't wait. And then nothing until 2017. But that's okay.
If you're at home, that's where you can go. You can go into your shelter, and that will not. No one has ever died in the storm shelter.
Do you have like a general rating on like the severity of a storm, sort of to lump them all in one?
Is it humans? Are we the reason that it's getting warmer? Or is it just a cyclical pattern?
What's up, advocates, and welcome back to another episode of the Claims Game podcast. Guys, have you ever heard of HailTrace? If you haven't, you need to go on right now, HailTrace.com, and find out what HailTrace is all about. It's only one of the best hail weathering maps, wind weathering maps, HailTrace meteorology maps that you could locate and pinpoint exactly what neighborhoods, what location, and where you could actually pinpoint where to go door knocking or find out where people have suffered any kind of wind damage or hail damage after a storm. And guess who I'm speaking to today on the Claims Game podcast? The owner, the CEO, and the man in charge of all of it, Derik Klein. Such a great and wonderful conversation I had with this man. He is just obsessed and in love with crazy weather, meteorology. He used to chase tornadoes, and he's got some great stories about that. Obviously, his favorite movie is Twister. So it's just like a really, really cool interview, and you're going to learn a lot about the ins and outs about what goes on behind the scenes at HailTrace to make sure that you, as a public adjuster, restoration contractor, roofer, whoever it is that you deal with these events after these homes and buildings after these storms. I mean, this is what you need. You need this in your arsenal. You need this for your team. And we're going to learn everything about it here in the Claims Game podcast with this wonderful interview with Derik Klein. So stay tuned. Listen up, advocates. Whether you're a public adjuster, contractor, or an attorney, if you have a client that has suffered any kind of catastrophic loss, whether that be by fire or storm or just any catastrophic loss that requires your client to have to move out and incur ALE and loss of use coverage, you need to think about looking at Black Diamond Services. This is an incredible idea for a service that I think is extremely valuable, and I've actually personally used for my clients myself. Basically, what they do is they provide all of the necessary money that is needed to be done for the homeowner to go and move to another place, whether that be a hotel or another home or whatever it is. They basically bill through their insurance policy's loss of use coverage, and basically they provide financial assistance so that the insured never has to incur any out-of-pocket expenses. It's an amazing service. I love the people at Black Diamond Services, especially Millie Varela. If you just contact her and contact Black Diamond Services, I'm telling you, they're going to take care of your clients like you wouldn't believe. I personally have a client who suffered a fire damage and had to use their ALE coverage, and all we did was refer them to Black Diamond. Our clients did not have to come out of pocket a single penny. Black Diamond provided all of the financial money, and they provided the actual location for the homeowner to stay. Amazing service. Contact Black Diamond Services today so you can find out more information for yourself.
Welcome to the Claims Game podcast with Vince Perry. Get all the tips you need from insurance claim advocates and professionals and grow your public adjusting career to the next level. And now the commercial claims advocate, Vince Perry.
All right. Derik, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm pretty excited to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, by the way. By the way, we are on here with Derik Klein. Derik Klein is the owner, CEO of the infamous, famous HailTrace. Welcome, man. Welcome. Again, I'm really, really happy to have you on. How you doing, man?
Good, man. We're doing really well. It's It's been an exciting year. I'm excited for next year, though. It's, 2 weeks away now. We're almost to 2022. So it's
How
kind of
the,
crazy.
how the hell did that happen?
Yeah, you got me. It's going so fast. Like we were working on some stuff the other day, and I was like, yeah, well, we got all this to do, and they're like, Derek, we've got like Christmas and New Year's is next week. I was like, oh, how are we gonna get all this stuff done?
It's like we were just talking before. I was telling you about all the crap that I got going on, and your response is just life of an entrepreneur. Like it doesn't
That's
stop.
it.
And then the problem is like with us, I don't know if you've read Traction at all or anything like that, and Visionary and Integrator and stuff. I almost say like the hell that a visionary has to go through is the constant ideas that continue to come out every single day like freaking diarrhea. It's like 100 a day, and you've got to even like sort of filter some of them, but then you want to implement some of them, but then 2 days later you might be like, you might have forgotten about that idea already, and then it's insane, isn't it?
It's nonstop. My favorite is when they wake you up. It's 2 a.m. and boom, you're awake and you're done. Like the day
3:30.
started. You might as well go.
3:30 for me. It's like a clock almost. 3:30 I wake up, and I'm either waking up in sweats worrying about something, or I wake up because of a new idea.
Yeah, and that'd be 2:30 Central Time. That's where I'm at. So we're doing it at the same time.
There you go. Next time I wake up at 3:30, I'll call you.
Yeah.
I love that sign you got behind you, man. Think big.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
Well, so I'm one of the things like I go back to when I started HealthTrace, and I started the company. I had a love of weather, but I knew nothing about the restoration industry, construction at all. And I got to where I am today in a big part because of curiosity. And so one of our core values, one of our biggest core values here at HealthTrace is curiosity. So I encourage our team and everybody that works here to be very curious about everything. Explore, is there a better way to do something? What is that better way? How does whatever it is, how does it work? And just be curious. And part of that, when you're curious, you learn to think big as well. So don't be afraid of tackling something that you think is impossible. And I'll give you a great example is, with our team. So the tornadoes occurred in Kentucky on December 10th. And as a meteorology company, we watch that stuff happen live as it happens. And we understand pretty quickly the impact that it's going to have on the community. So we're tracking this tornado as it moves across. We watch it hit town after town after town, and the debris signature on radar. We know this is a catastrophic loss. Wake up the next morning, and reality is what we thought it was going to be, unfortunately. But one of my team members, out of curiosity and thinking big, said, hey, we know a lot of people in Oklahoma, in our community where we're at. And we know in Oklahoma, we've dealt with, in fact, the last EF5 tornado was in Oklahoma in the United States. And so we have an understanding of what the folks in Kentucky are going through. And she was like, let's do a charity drive. Let's do a donation drive. And I was like, you guys do realize let's be curious. Let's think through what that means for us as a company. We put our heads together. We spent an entire Saturday. The tornadoes happened Friday night. We spent all day Saturday planning out this charity drive and deciding that we're going to drive supplies from Oklahoma to Kentucky, which we're doing on Sunday. We decided, hey, let's do it. And so we've done it. Literally, my office right now looks like a Walmart. It is. I mean, we have tables out everywhere with signs on like what size of clothes go here, pants, shirts, short sleeve shirts, kids' clothes, toiletries, feminine products, water. I mean, we have cases and cases, pallets and pallets of water. I mean, there's probably total donations. There's probably between $10,000 and $20,000 worth of stuff that's been donated to our office so far. We expect today to be our biggest day. We've also had almost $40,000 in cash donated as well. So we just took it on, and again, thinking big, and now we get to make an impact on the people in Kentucky as we drive all this stuff to Kentucky. So And that's just kind of our motto. That's what we're about.
Is there anywhere that the viewers could go to, that they could go to and they could help you with this drive, that they could donate?
Sure, absolutely. We have a GoFundMe set up. I don't have the link memorized, but I can forward that to you, and we can get that out to the viewers. That's at least people, if they're in Oklahoma watching, they can go to 80 East 5th Street in Edmond, Oklahoma, and they can just drop off stuff. But outside of that, we have the GoFundMe where we'll take that cash and get it to the people that need it the most. We're doing gift cards. We're trying to buy a lot of stuff here in Oklahoma to not take away the supply chain in Kentucky, right? Supply chain issues have been a big deal. So we don't want to go there with $30,000 in cash and buy coats from the Walmart that's down the street from the place that was just destroyed. Let's let somebody buy themselves there, and we'll just come there with the coats, And so that's kind of been our plan. We have tons of gift cards. I think we're doing $22,000 in gift cards that we're going to hand out when we get there. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
So what we'll do too at the end of this, at the end of our show here, I'll do like a live on Instagram or Facebook to see if we can get some donations now, because we're not going to put this probably for another week or two. So it won't be too late by then, right?
We will already have gone out there, but we can definitely get gift cards and mail them to the people there. So if they still donate, what we'll do is we'll just mail this stuff to them as opposed to driving it out there.
Tell me a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes at HailTrace, and tell me a little bit about this storm in relation to the storm. So this tornado hits, and you mentioned you're a meteor. God, that's such a tough word. Meteorology company. What goes on behind the scenes when you see this storm coming? You see this storm approaching. What kind of stuff are you guys doing on the back end?
Well, it starts off with forecasting, and we do a daily forecast every day. But so we go through and we try to forecast out what it looks like for us as a company, and then for our clients, because there's two parts to it, right? Because we have 9 meteorologists on our staff, and so we have to make sure that we're staffed properly to track the event the way that it needs to be tracked. And so as we start to see the scope of the storm system, and a lot of times it's 24, 48 hours, 72 hours notice. As a meteorologist, you have to be very flexible, kind of prepared for who knows what's going to happen, how long you're going to have to work. On that particular tornadic event, they went until 4 or 5 in the morning. So we had multiple people working until 4 or 5 in the morning. And that started at 7 or 8 that afternoon before. So
excuse my ignorance, but what is it that they're doing throughout this time? Are they just like refreshing a page? Are they driving out to the middle of the tornado? Like, what is it that the meteorologists are actually doing?
I know we do love chasing the tornadoes, but what we're doing as far as for our customers, so we have high definition radar, and we've custom built that software to read in a way that we can track tornadoes, wind, and hail very quickly for what we're trying to do. And so literally every 2.5 minutes, that radar is updating, and then they update the map to go with it. And so it's live, and understanding, and we added a new facet to it this year, but understanding before the contractor, right? They want that data as quick as possible. If it's a hailstorm, they want to know where, if it's 8 o'clock at night, they want to know at 8:05. And so that's always been our goal, is to be able to put that out as fast as possible. I said we added a new facet here recently. We were blessed with the opportunity. We are the only company that tracks tornadoes the way that we do. And so we were able to hone in the tornado tracks within many cases within like 1,000 feet. And so we were able to give those tornado tracks to FEMA. And so they estimated it saved them between 7 and 14 days as far as being able to respond to the tragedy in Kentucky. So it added a new facet now to where it's not just, hey, we're trying to help a contractor get out where they can sell roofs. Now all of a sudden we're potentially saving lives. And so it's really cool where the company has gone from where it was when I started it 11 years ago. Just me in a closet loving weather, to, I would have never thought that we would produce a product that would save someone's life.
It's amazing business entrepreneurship and the direction it goes, where sometimes you've got this vision or you've got this idea and you've got an idea of where it's going to go, and it just not necessarily goes in a different direction, but it just blossoms into something so much more incredible.
Yeah.
Take me
Absolutely.
back to your closet 11 years ago. It's loving weather. What was the initial idea behind HailTrace? I could only assume it was something in regards to, obviously contractors and having the ability to really track weather events to, like you said, go sell roofs, put new roofs, insurance claims, so on and so forth. Was that it? Was it something different? What was it like back then?
Honestly, it was something different. And I mean, we can go back, so I've loved weather since I was 5 or 6 years old. As soon as I turned 16, I started chasing tornadoes. And so my first tornado was May 3rd, 1999. For those that aren't tornado buffs and know the dates of every tornado that's ever happened in the country, that was in Moore, Oklahoma. It was an EF5 tornado, or it was an F5 at the time. They measured winds at 319 miles per hour, and still to this date, it's the strongest measured wind gust on the planet. So
holy crap.
Right. So welcome to storm chasing. I was 16 and I was hooked at that point, at understanding the power of those storms. So from that point on, I'm doing internships at our local TV stations. I'm chasing storms nonstop. Any chance I can get, I go and chase tornadoes, or I didn't chase hail at the time. So fast forward to 2008. So we're about 10 years later. I'm married. I have, I might have had my second already. We were either getting ready to have our second child, or we already had our second child. Don't remember the date of the hailstorm, but I'm at my house, and this hailstorm hits my house with tennis ball size hail. I still vividly remember because I was really excited. So I'm sitting out on the front porch watching it hail. And the only thought that's going through my head is that, my car's getting dented out in the driveway. But outside of that, I didn't know roofs got damaged from hail. I was, young. I didn't know any of this stuff. In fact, someone came and knocked on my door a couple months after the hailstorm, and this is 2008, so it's not as aggressive as it is today with technology and stuff. So someone comes and knocks on my door. He actually got up and said we didn't have damage, which should have been a red flag for me as far as understanding contractors and their view of what is damage and what isn't. It's a variable for sure.
I'm surprised I'm surprised that wasn't the insurance adjuster saying that.
Right. So we go to sell our house though about a year or two later, and they come out and do the inspection, and they're like, your roof is smoked. It needs to be replaced. So we get the roof replaced. I still don't do, like, 2 and 2 don't go together. I don't realize it's the hailstorm that totaled my roof. We had a windstorm that had blown some shingles off at one point, just a couple, like on one side. So I just assumed that's what it was. So I continue to go on with my life chasing tornadoes and hail, still have no idea that there's a business opportunity around hail and contractors and adjusters. And I don't know this game yet. And so we fast forward to May 16th, 2010, and this catastrophic hailstorm comes through Oklahoma City, does over $1 billion in damage. Still to this day would be the costliest hailstorm in Oklahoma history. And still does nothing triggers. I just am watching it as a weather nerd, just geeking out on this storm. And about 2 days later, a friend of our family's had become a roofing salesperson. And she called and asked me if I could make her a map, knowing that I chase storms. And I built a website about 3 or 4 months prior. I called the website Extreme Weather Predictions. The goal of the website was to take people on storm chasing tours. And literally, if you look up HailTrace, that's actually a DBA for Extreme Weather Predictions LLC. because I created a business and everything around it to do that, until 3 months later when someone said, "Hey, can you make a hail map?" And I still remember thinking, why would they want that? Like, why would they want to know where it hailed at? And she's like, there's a lot of money to be made. And so over the next year or so, I spent that next year transitioning the brand from, I'm not going to do storm chasing tours, that actually wasn't that good of an idea, to I'm going to make these hail maps, and try to turn it into a business. Did that, again, for about a year. And then took the money that I had made and purchased a booth at the International Roofing Expo in Orlando, Florida, February 2012. And that couple of weeks before that is when I quit my day job and made HailTrace my day job. So
nice. So
that's literally how I got into the industry.
So a couple of things as I'm listening, I write little notes down. First of all, I'm going to go back. We'll get back to HailTrace, of course, but you say chasing tornadoes. I'm thinking
Yes.
Twister, right? I'm thinking the movie Twister. First of all, was that your favorite movie? And second of all, is that what chasing tornadoes? Is that what that is?
That is what Chasing Tornadoes is, and that was my favorite. Probably still is my favorite movie. Like I'll be flipping through the channels and like Twister will be on. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this right now.
So they do a good job at depicting what it's like to chase tornadoes.
Pretty. I mean, you don't get inside of an F5 tornado. You die if you do that. But outside of the parts where they get in the tornado, if you take everything else, it's a pretty good job actually.
What about those little balls that they send that like flies into the tornado? Is that like a real thing?
They don't have the balls, but we have. That sounds funny.
I know. You know what I'm talking about, right? Those little like.
But yes.
Yeah.
So they put the Pepsi cans on, right? So that is not. But they did create, and I don't know if the idea came from the movie or what, but there were these sensors that were created that storm chasers will get in front of the tornado and set it down and then hope the tornado goes over the sensor, where they can measure barometric pressure, wind speed. They actually put a camera inside of it so they can see. Tim Samaras, who's no longer alive. He was actually killed in a tornado. He was the first person to put one into a tornado. He did it in South Dakota on an F4 tornado, and got tons of data that the meteorology community has been able to use to enhance warning times and all that type of stuff. So same concept, a little different in the way that it's done, but it's a true, and to say, is it, and I said, we don't get in the tornado, obviously, unfortunately, he did. It was a strong EF5 tornado, and there were 3 people in his car. It killed all 3 of them. I mean, they found the motor like half a mile away from the car. Like, it removed the motor out of the car. They found them half a mile away from the road where they were tossed. And then typically these are the only deaths ever from storm chasing. So we'll make that clear. Like, that doesn't happen that often. This is literally the only time. This was May 31st, 2013 is when this happened. So it's very rare, but this was a pretty rare tornado. It was moving southeast at 20 miles per hour. It was about 3/4 of a mile wide. So it was a big tornado. And then it turned to the northeast, which is not an uncommon behavior for a tornado. So, and like me, I actually chase similar to the way Tim does. I chase on the north side of the tornado. It's called the bear's cage. You get a better shot. Like, you can see the tornado better from that. And then a lot of times, if it's wrapped in rain, that's the only spot you can see the tornado. So as this tornado makes that turn to move to the northeast, it accelerated. So it was moving southeast at 20 and then turned to the northeast, which is the direction that he was from the tornado, and accelerated from 20 miles per hour to 55 miles per hour. And then it expanded from 3/4 of a mile wide to 2.6 miles wide in 30 seconds.
What?
So literally the tornado went from this small tornado to it grew into him. So it wasn't like it moved, it accelerated towards him.
It didn't move in 30
time.
seconds. It just moved and grew. So it's like
and
5
grew
seconds.
at the same time. Yeah. So it was like just came up and just basically ate them is what happened.
I'm literally drawing
Yeah.
like the path of the tornado and like thinking like
Mhm.
you're supposed to drive on the north side. So they're like chilling. They're basically behind it. Right. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it just makes almost a V, like almost like a U-turn in a way, and just
Yep.
goes back the other way and then expands from 3/4 to over 2.5 miles wide.
Yes. Yep. And it goes down today as the widest tornado in U.S. history, 2.6
Wow.
miles wide. So
But it's not,
I've got a video.
if you're chasing a storm or a tornado from the bear's
Mhm.
cage, I'm
Yep.
assuming that V turn or that U turn in a way does not happen very often.
Yep. It's the U-turn does happen. It's called occluding. So what's happening is typically you're about to see a handoff. So rotate tornadoes. It's called a cyclical supercell. So they will cycle. And so what'll happen is it'll take that tornado and it'll pull it up into the core of the storm and almost eject it out the back. Like it just just trashes it and gets rid of it. But while it's doing that, a new circulation is formed. And so sometimes you'll get two because the other one will actually form a tornado as the other one's still falling apart. So that's what was happening. And tornadoes they're really just small scale versions of a big low pressure system. So like, for example, we had the big severe weather outbreak 2 days ago in Kansas, and there was like this big low pressure system. It looked like a bowling ball. That would be a tornado on a storm. And then the clouds, you could see it was literally like a big comma head. That's the storm, would be that. And that low pressure was actually occluding. It was actually pulling up into the storm as it strengthened and expanded and went directly to north. So it was doing the same thing. It had the same behaviors as a tornado, but on a continental scale, right? So it's the size of the U.S. continent, instead of, a 5 mile radius.
This is fascinating to me. The whole idea.
It's me too.
and chasing storms. It's just like, I'm sorry, I keep going back to these tornadoes because I keep thinking Twister. How many of these tornadoes have you actually been behind and like looking at these and chasing them and studying them and doing, I know you're still studying them, but like actually out there storm chasing. And second follow-up question, did you actually give any tours?
We did one paid tour for $150. So that's how much money we made. And I've lost count. I don't know exactly what the number is, but it's somewhere north of 400 tornadoes. So I've also been in 10 hurricanes, like in the eye of a hurricane.
And would you say a hurricane is just basically a massive tornado, right? In a way, because it's like goes like this.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's a low pressure center. So, yep.
That's fascinating. So you're like sort of when I was a little bit younger, except I obviously didn't take it to your level, but I remember born and raised in Miami, Florida, Hurricane Andrew, and just any other hurricane that would come in. And my dad and I used to get really excited about it. We used to get really excited about, oh, look at this thing. That's amazing. Like what Mother Nature could actually just build up and create and the destruction that it can cause, which obviously it's a sad situation for many people, but just the idea of the climactic nature of what Mother Nature, the destruction that it can bring and what it could actually develop it's always been pretty interesting to me as well. It's just a fascinating topic on what could happen. I've never seen a tornado in person though. That must be pretty amazing.
Yeah. Most people haven't, even in Oklahoma where I live, where we get a lot of tornadoes. Most people still haven't ever seen one in person.
What do people do? You live in Oklahoma. You says it happens pretty often, but again, I live in Florida, and people don't realize that although there has been a lot of hurricanes, for a hurricane to actually hit specific to where you actually live, let's say Miami, or let's say, I'll just use Miami as an example. When you really look at it, really over the last 30 years or so, Miami's only been hit by, I would say, maybe less than a handful, maybe about a handful of actual hurricanes. So living in Oklahoma with tornadoes, there's a lot of preparation that goes into these homes, right? Are they tornado proof, some of them? Or are there locations where they are where there is no tornado proof, is there?
No, because tornadoes are definitely worse than hurricanes. At
Right.
least the strong ones are.
But they're more
Um,
specific, right? Like
they are,
hurricanes are
and
going to get much
they
mass.
don't. Yeah, so like you living in Miami, even if you didn't get impacted by the eye of Andrew, you were still impacted by Andrew.
Right.
Maybe not as devastating as the eye, but you still potentially had damage from the storm itself. A tornado might be 2 blocks wide in its damage path. It can be very small. So like for me personally, my house has never been hit by a tornado, and I've lived in Oklahoma my entire life. My sister's house was, and I think that's my only family member that has been is
Wow.
my sister. So most people, I would say the number is probably 90% of people, 95% of people in Oklahoma have never been hit by a tornado. So, whereas if you live in Florida, you've probably been hit by a hurricane if you've lived there for very long.
For sure.
So it is a little bit different, but the difference is you don't have the warning time, right? So we get told that there's a chance of tornadoes, but you don't know if it's going to hit you or not. In fact, it's less than 1% chance that it's going to hit you. So you kind of just have to go about your day, and just know, all right, if something comes my way, here's what I'm going to do. Again, houses will get messed up, but a lot of houses in Oklahoma do have storm shelters in them. And so that's, if you're at home, that's where you can go. You can go into your shelter, and that will not. No one has ever died in the storm shelter.
Tell me about this storm in Kentucky. I mean, you said you're going over there, right? What kind
We
of
are.
destruction are we talking about? It's pretty insane from what I've been reading.
It is. It is.
Some of the worst you've seen?
Uh, it's up there. Yeah, for sure. The length of the tornado track is probably the most amazing part of this tornado. I do. So there's been speculation that it might break the record tornado path length, which currently sets at 219 miles, which is a long, and that was in 1925. I do think this tornado did not break that record. I think it lifted based off of what I saw on radar. But who knows? It's, there's a small scale. There could have been a really small tornado still on the ground that wasn't detectable by radar. Like it had rotation. So it could have been on the ground for as long as 250 miles, which would mean it would break that record. But either way, it was for sure on the ground for about 158, I think, which is extremely incredible. And then strength wise, it's up there. It's one of the strongest tornadoes to ever occur in Kentucky. It'll probably be a top 5 strength wise. Maybe the deadliest tornado to ever hit Kentucky. I'm not for sure on that, but it's going to be up there, if not the deadliest. I know the death toll, the last I saw was at 90. And so cost wise, it's going to be an expensive repair. Fortunately, it wasn't a fairly unpopulated part of Kentucky. So, there's a lot of rural areas that it traversed but it did hit some towns. So for example, like we're delivering our material to Dawson Springs. It's a town of about 2,500 people, and 75% of the town was leveled.
Wow.
So it's even though it was a rural area, it's still extremely impactful.
And what about what is it that? Oh, I had a question. I can't remember what it was. Well, tell me about this other one then. The one that just a couple days ago in Kansas, I think it was. Was it Kansas? The weather system that there was like it was
Yes.
like a wind event.
Yes, it went from Kansas to all the way. So I mean, there's 2 parts to the system, right? There were the thunderstorms, and then there were the high winds that were just because there was a really strong low pressure. And so if you look at the thunderstorm winds, they started in like central western part of Kansas and then accelerated to the northeast towards Minneapolis. The storms themselves were moving at around 100 miles per hour. Which is ridiculously fast. And so they did produce some smaller, weaker tornadoes, probably about 15 to 20 of them. they stayed fairly rural. There weren't any big communities hit or anything like that. But that it did produce widespread, it's called a derecho. It produced widespread winds of 75 miles per hour or greater. And it basically went from Nebraska and northern Kansas all the way through most of Iowa up to about the Minnesota border, is when they finally started to die down. So I know, like, for example, Lincoln, Nebraska had 93 mile per hour winds recorded in Lincoln. But then you can go, so outside of the thunderstorms, so we had this big low pressure system and it was producing strong winds without a thunderstorm. And so all of Western Kansas, Colorado, the Oklahoma Panhandle, the Texas Panhandle, Western Nebraska, Wyoming, all had high wind, like 80 plus mile per hour winds. And that was just a windy day, right? The sun's out and the wind's blowing 80 miles an hour. And even higher than that, Lamar, Colorado had a wind gust to 107. And Colorado Springs hit 95, I think. So it was a powerful storm system, to say the least.
Do you rate these storms like on obviously the tornado has their own ratings, hurricane has their own ratings, windstorms has their miles per hour. I'm sure hail has some kind of rating, but just, do you have like a general rating on like the severity of a storm, sort of to lump them all in one? I'm just curious. Like, is there okay, this is a severe storm. It was a hailstorm, but this is like the worst of the hailstorm. It was a windstorm, and this is like do you have like some kind of rating like that?
So we have our own rating that we do. We rate them from 1 to 5 stars. So that would be the specific storm itself, right? So like the derecho wind event, and even though, so like for us, we're trying to account for the amount of damage as well. So not just how strong was the actual storm. Because I mean, while that matters, it also matters, does it impact stuff? So like a great example is the derecho that happened in Iowa last year in 2020, in August of 2020, went from Iowa to Chicago, basically. It had winds, I think they measured winds 140 miles an hour in that. So we're talking, Cat 3, Cat 4 hurricane type stuff, and did a ton of damage. And hit, I mean, Chicago had 90 mile per hour winds. There was just stuff everywhere. That, I think $17 billion in damage. So that's a 5-star easily. We rated the derecho in Nebraska a 4-star.
Did you say
mainly
derecho?
Because the winds, derecho. Yep.
What is that?
So that's a long scale high wind event. So
Gotcha.
it's winds over 75 miles an hour that last for longer than 2 hours.
Gotcha.
So not at any one location, but the storm itself produces 75 mile an hour winds for over 2 hours. So that it gets categorized as a derecho. So derecho is kind of like, it's like a land hurricane almost.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Is the best, is kind of a way to explain it. So we rated that one a 4-star, because it was over a lot of rural areas. So we kind of lowered that down a little bit from the one that hit more people.
Not quite as much catastrophic damage to a high populated area.
Yep. And we do the same thing for hailstorms. So we'll rate those from 1 to 5 stars, based off of the size of hail that impacted the population center. So baseball size hail in the middle of nowhere is a 1-star. Baseball size hail in Dallas, Texas is a 5-star.
And you've been doing this for, you said, about 11 years now. Have you noticed a trend? Is the number of 5-star events, have they gone up? Is it just sort of up and down? Is it a steady incline? What would you say? I mean, like, everybody's always freaking out. Global warming, this and that. The world's going to end and all this crap. We've got more storms. Is that really true? I mean, you would be the one to answer that.
So I'll say a few things. I do think global warming is a thing. The argument that
you didn't. You didn't. Right? You just pissed off half your clientele. That's it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, so here's what's interesting. So, I mean, the earth itself is getting warmer. The political side of it is, why is the earth getting warmer? Right. So is it humans? Are we the reason that it's getting warmer? Or is it just a cyclical pattern? And I'll just take the easy road out and say, we don't know. I don't think there's a way to know for sure. I think there are some things that pointed that humans have contributed to it, but I also don't think that we have a big enough understand. Our planet's been around for a long time. And so we have 100-year history of temperatures to know, and we have seen waves and cycles, right? But the question is, are we seeing waves? Or are we seeing swells? So you can have long-term patterns and with short-term patterns in between, right? So that's a swell with a wave on top. So if we have a swell in temperature and then a wave on top of the swell, we're going to see a rapid increase in temperature for the earth. And that's going to be scary. But if it's a swell and a wave, we understand that it's going to go back down too. So the earth is designed to balance itself out. Now, if we're causing issues with that, will the earth I think the earth will still try to balance itself out in some way. But the earth's going to do it on its own time. And we don't understand what that is.
It's like George Carlin. George Carlin says that. It's just like, everybody's always worried, save the earth, save the trees, save the bees, save the this. It's like the earth has been around for long before humans. We're the one that's fucked, not the earth.
Right. Exactly. So, I think we have to look at it from that standpoint. But if we look at the severity of weather events since I started HailTrace, the worst hail season in U.S. history was 2011. So we haven't gone up from that. In fact, we're this year, 2020.
Talk about perfect timing, Derik. About 11 years ago.
I know, right? Like, I definitely wasn't prepared for that. It was just me. So I could have made a lot more money. I'd been doing that 10 years at that time. True. But this year, 2021 will go down as the slowest hail season in the last 20 years. So
it's because there's too many there's too many roofing contractors and public adjusters. That's why.
Now they're going to kill me because I just said that, right? So
no, I'm the one that
hurricanes.
That's okay. That's how we weed them away. We weed them. Oh, well, there's never going to be hail again. Let me just do something else now. That's better for us.
Right. So hurricanes, I can make the same connection, thing. Right? We went 10 years from 2008, 2007 to 2017 without a major hurricane making landfall in the U.S.
Oh, trust me.
2017 happened.
Guess when I became a public adjuster? 2008. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make so much money. All these hurricanes, I can't wait. And then nothing until 2017. But that's okay. Mm-hmm. And then 2004, There was 3 that hit Florida.
Yes. And one that hit Texas as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So 2000, there were 4 of them.
And then 2005 was Wilma and Katrina.
Yes. So so from 17, we had, what was it?
Michael, Sally, Michael hit the Panhandle. Sally hit the Panhandle.
Michael was 18. Irma was 17. Florence was 17 in North Carolina.
Sally was 20. That was last year in Pensacola.
Yep. I was in Sally. I was in Irma. I was in Michael. I was in Florence. And then I was in Harvey in Texas. And then you've got the Louisiana.
Those poor people. I mean, what is it? 3 in
over
2 years? It's crazy.
More than that. It's so they had Laura, they had Zeta, they had Delta, they had what was the one this year? Irma. I feel like there's one. I feel like they had a low end Cristobal or something like that, like a low end Cat 1.
Familiar. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they've had 5 or 6 hurricanes make landfall in the last 2 years in Louisiana.
You have a problem when you start to name the storms Delta and Zeta and all those names when they run out of names.
Yes. Right. So
that's crazy. So then I guess you can't really answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say time will tell, but I think we'll all be dead by the time it tells. So I think it's, that weather patterns are much bigger than our lifespans. There are short ones too. So the weather's made up of lots of little patterns and lots of big patterns. And so, we try to understand them the best that we can. There are different patterns that set up. So you have La Nina and El Nino. Those are weather patterns. We also have oceanic cycles that that, that we can track. Like one's called the MJO, which is the Indian Ocean. And that one really affects a lot of times hurricanes. So when we get into the right phase with that, we can always count on that wave coming across, or creates like a Kelvin wave, which comes across, which is just a big area of lower pressure. So when these little storm systems underneath it and the pressure's already lower around them, it makes it easier for them to get stronger. And then we have, for severe weather, we have like our PDO phase, which is the Pacific oceanic cycle. And so when that gets negative, that tends to make the jet stream more amplified in the US, which is what we have right now. And that's why we're having so many big storm systems. So, the question is, will we have La Nina, springtime, and a negative PDO all at the same time in the US? The last time that happened was 2011. So will that ever repeat itself again? Right now we're a little early, right? It's December. So we have the negative PDO, but it's just too early in the year to do that. So, will that phase hold? We don't know. We'll see when we get there.
It's so funny. Like, you study it and you do what you can to learn it. But at the end of the day, none of us have any control over it. You just have to sort of wait and see you could see a trend or you could see something, but at the end of the day, just like this tornado you explained to me, it could just turn northeast out of nowhere and then you're stuck.
Yep, absolutely. So
that's insane.
That's why I love it, so trying to figure it out.
Unpredictable nature. And I guess that's something that you can never stop learning from, ever.
Yeah, there's always something new to learn.
So tell me more about HailTrace and what are some of the things that you guys have going on now? I mean, 11 years later, I mean, that's incredible. That's commendable for anybody to have a business for that long. It's really amazing. What are some of the things that you guys are doing now? I am an active user of HailTrace. I enjoy it thoroughly. I think it's tremendous. I have my guys in Texas that use it, throughout Florida that use it. It's an amazing software that you've put together. But tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we obviously in 2010, it's interesting. When I started it, I hand drew all the maps, and we still do that today. I actually thought it was a weakness, but it was my only means of being able to create a product. I didn't have the software engineering ability to go build an algorithm. So I knew how to look at a radar, and I knew how to use Google Earth. And so that was the means to the end. And then it turned out that, that's actually more accurate than an algorithm. So, so I just hired meteorologists to duplicate myself.
How do you do that? How do you draw a map? Is that what you're saying? You would draw it?
Yeah. So I would
Google Earth, and you would look at a storm or something like that, and you would just outline
I'd have this radar software that would have, all the little roads on it, and it'd have the radar on it. And so I could see, where that hail lined up on the roads. And then I would have Google Earth on another monitor, and I would go, okay, that's right by that road,
Cool.
and then that by that road. And then you literally just back and forth, and you just draw it out, make the different layers. And it's time consuming. It takes, again, for us, so we have 9 meteorologists on staff. Some of them are for research and development, and then some are for actually tracking storms. 6 of our meteorologists are for mapping the storms in the US. So it takes 6 meteorologists full time to track all of the US's severe weather.
Do they draw?
They draw.
You rely on still handwritten drawing from a meteorologist than you do from any kind of software program or wow, that's really cool.
Yep. So now what's interesting is we do think that the algorithm has some strengths to it. We think the meteorologist it has some strengths to it too. What we found was they actually offset each other. What one does well, the other doesn't, and what the other does well, the other doesn't. And so what we've been spending our resources and money on has been trying to figure out how to blend that. So we're going to call it our hybrid map. And that will be a mixture of an algorithm and a meteorologist map. And there's some interesting things that we're doing. I can't obviously get into all the details because it's our own cocktail, if you will, of how we come up with this. But we have now figured out that we can get to the point now where not only can we say hail size, but we can give you hail duration at any individual location. We can give you hail volume at any individual location. So I can tell you how much hail is falling and how much of it was big and how much of it was small. And we've even built it out as far, because when we take into those factors, all of a sudden we start to understand how damaging the hail actually was. So instead of showing up to a roof that had 2-inch hail, but it got hit with one of them, which wasn't enough to total the roof, right? One hailstone is not going to total a roof. We can now tell you, no, there were probably, 50 hits on an entire roof, or even there were 8 hits per square. Or, I mean, we're starting to get into some of those type of analytics. And so we have not released this yet, but we have been testing it with our own theory. And we ran a test in Colorado Springs on a handful of storms, and 91% of the time, if we said the roof was totaled, it got replaced. And so that was some stuff that we were super excited about. And so we took that a step further, and we said, well, a lot of times these storms are actually cumulative. Like, it's a combination of this storm plus this storm plus this storm that totaled the roof. It wasn't a singular storm. So we built an algorithm. This is what an algorithm is better at. We built an algorithm that can actually accumulate that. Not only that, but you can also tell it what type of roof it has and how old it is. And it will score that roof based off of its possibility of being totaled. And that's literally where we're headed, is in that direction.
It's not just that too. What I'm looking at Hillchase right now, just to, refresh my, just to look at it. But even like the contacts that you guys provide, or you can even get contact information of people that could just help with door-to-door people and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You can actually personalize messages to them and stuff like that. It's really incredible.
Yeah. And that idea came from a need really for us. I mean, at the end of the day, right, let's just be honest. We're all entrepreneurs and we're all here to make money. Right. So like, we don't need to skip around. Like I want to make money, and so I want you to spend money with me. But one of the biggest hardships that we had, and I think this is something that contractors deal with too, is that when November would roll around, there weren't any hailstorms. So there wasn't a revenue source for us. And so we either had to be really smart with our money and understand that we're going to be bleeding money as we get into November, December, and January, or we had to figure out a way to make money. And so in order to do that, we had to solve a problem. And we understood that contractors had the same problem that we did. They needed to make money in the off season, just like we did. And we understood that there was still hail damage, and that the problem that they were trying to solve with buying our product, which was tell me where a hailstorm happened, wasn't really the problem that they had. The problem that they had is they needed to know where hail damage was. And so if we took that idea and we said, okay, so it's November, is there any hail damage right now? We said, the answer is yes, there is hail damage in just about every city. So how can we help contractors sell to people that have hail damage? And obviously we didn't have the solution like we're coming up with now. That's a derivative that's still coming, right? Thinking big, curiosity, right? But we knew that contractors could go knock doors and find out if there was hail damage. They could overlay some stuff and kind of come up with their own concoction of an area that had damage. And so let's supply them with information that helps them sell. So let's give them data. Let's tell them who lives in the house. Let's give them their email address. So if they want to just shoot out an email, they can do that. Let's make sure that they can easily get the data loss at the property. Let's make sure that if there's a phone number, we can get that phone number for them. Let's make sure that if they need to follow up, they can drop a pin and understand that, hey, I need to follow up with this address. Let's alert them when their customers get hit, because, there is little rogue hailstorms throughout the year. Right. And sometimes that can make or break your year if you excel on something that you didn't think was really that great of a storm. I'll give you a really good story.
Yeah.
I was in Orlando at Dimitri's roof process show that he had a few weeks back. Contractor comes up and he's telling me how he uses our stuff. And he's like, yeah, we have, there's actually 2 of them around this. That's pretty interesting. He's like, we don't get a lot of storms. And I was like, okay. I was like, so how did the product work? He's like, it was far and above the best thing that we had. He said, I can show you, even though we didn't have a lot of storms, I can give you a $2.5 million deal that we landed off of this product. And it's funny is I went and looked, and it was a 2-star map for us. We said it wasn't a great storm, but there was a big complex of metal buildings in there, and this guy landed that deal, right? So it doesn't take that much. Another story that we heard at this same event was a contractor in Michigan who said, "I've been using your product for 2 years. It's one of the best things that we've ever had as a company. We consistently now have hail damage." He said, "It's interesting." It's funny because he was like talking himself through the realization of this. He goes, "We never used to have hailstorms in Michigan, but since I've had your product, we've had hailstorms every single year." And then he goes, "Wait a minute. I don't think we knew that there were hailstorms happening. We just didn't know they were happening, and we didn't know that they were happening." And so it's funny to watch the light bulb go off. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this."
Yeah.
So that was really, and that's probably one of my favorite things about, used to going to trade shows. It was all about getting new customers because we didn't have that many. Now we talk to lots of customers, and it's so fun to hear the stories of, how this software platform has made them successful or what it does. So
what's some of the more popular features that people tell you about that's their favorite feature in regards to the whole system, the whole software?
I mean, I think there's obviously depends on the contractor a lot of times, but I would say our number
for me is the contact feature that you can get the contact information of an entire city or of an entire area that just got hit. Right. I think it's incredible.
Yeah. And that is a huge one. And people really like that we enabled it in 2 ways, that you could draw the area that you wanted to get, or you could just say, "I want everybody that had 2-inch hail." And so it makes it real easy, and it doesn't take a lot of work to get that data sent to your email. I think the other one that we get a lot of great feedback is the customer feature. So I've got all of my customers in the software. I get alerted when they're hit, and then I get the list of my customers that were hit. Because a lot of people in their marketing strategy is, when a storm happens, first I go to my customers, then I go to that list that you referenced. Because we're going to call all of our customers first. They're easy. We're going to have a high conversion rate with them. And then we're going to go to the new stuff and start working that.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, it's an amazing thing that you've put together. And I see, it seems to me like you guys just keep thinking big, and you keep just really hitting that core value of curiosity. I'm looking forward to see what's going to be next for you guys, man. I think it's going to be pretty amazing.
Me too. Yeah, it's fun to watch it progress.
Cool. Well, Derik, I do really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm sure we'll see each other soon at one of the 1,000 conferences that are put on every year. So I'm sure we'll see each other soon. And again, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I'm an avid user of HailTrace. My entire team uses it, and I want to thank you for being such a forward thinker and really having that curiosity, because there's really, there's a couple other softwares out there, but none, I think, even come close to what you've provided. So I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me as well.